What's good with it in the hood with it? Welcome back to the Collective Clips, where you already know we get it in. In fact, this is how we get it in. Stas. You know we get it in right here on the Collective Clips. Welcome back. Thank you guys for all your participation. Hit that like and subscribe button. And if you haven't hit it yet, ding. Put your notification bell on all so that way you're directed in the direction of the dope content that the gun is kicking. And I highly appreciate all the support, man. I'm very humbled by it. It doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you, man. Well, let's talk about Super Gangs, brother, right? We're going to do another episode of Super Gangs. This is episode 2, man. Bakersfield Southsiders. Ooh wee. And I say ooh wee with a capital ooh, right? Because this is probably, these gentlemen are the Southsiders that were putting in the most work that I was around in my youth authority days and even in prison, man. The 805, the old school 805. I think it's 661 now, but Bakers were a big group and they put in the work because they felt that they had to put in that work, right? You know, I can remember back in the days in the youth authority when I was locked up, Bakersfield Southsiders standing out amongst the rest. And the reason that was, and at first I didn't know why these guys in particular were the ones that were on the Northerners the most. I mean, rushing us constantly in the school area, getting off on site when they seen us. But I understood them being more Northern, even though they're from Southern California, that's where the line, the imaginary line is drawn. They were still more Northern than, say, LA or San Diego or the IE, San Bernardino, Riverside. So these guys, not only did they have this hatred towards Norteños, having interaction with the ones from Delano and all that, and running into them in Juvenile Hall and all that, and also a lot of them being sent to the Northern California Reception Center, which was NRCC, because that's where Bakersfield was deep, right? A lot of them were getting harassed, if not harassed, lightweight fucked with by guys from Los Angeles, from LA when they were locked up. I remember they were called 13 and a half. They were called Sureños del Norte. There was just a lot going on. And so these guys felt they should fucking show everyone what it's about. Now, there's a lot of Southsider gangs in Bakersfield. And there's a lot of history when it comes to Bakersfield. Some of the founding members of the Northern organization in prison are from Bakersfield. Okay, once upon a time, a long time ago, in a land called Bakersfield, far, far away, it was a northern city. Okay, when the Norteños and the Southsiders were formed, when they first started hitting the streets, when people started realizing, okay, there's Norteños and there's Southsiders, and there's a difference, right? Or at least we thought there was a difference. Bakersfield was considered a northern city. Okay, that line was pushed just a little bit past Bakersfield, and there were barrios that were Norteños once upon a time. But slowly but surely, the influence of Los Angeles, the influence of these guys getting incarcerated and going to prison and functioning as Southsiders, they kind of pushed all the Northerners out of Bakersfield. Now, I've heard, in recent years, people saying, oh, there's Northerners now in Bakersfield and this and that. I don't know that to be true. I've never seen anybody come out on the internet saying, hey, I'm a Bakersfield Norteño. This is what it is. I do know the history. I do know there was Northerners in Bakersfield. I do know that an organization from up north did have a foothold in Bakersfield and did have established regiments out there. But at the same time, the years I grew up, it was always Bakersfield Sul. Now, I ran into dudes from Okie Bakers. Shout out Clover, right? And the Homeboy Pups. I ran into Vatos from Bakers 13, Barrio Bakers, Loma, Colonia, and the list can go on and on, for the Vatos that I haven't mentioned, Despensa. But, these were all the guys that I ran into. And I've told a story about the first interaction I ever had with Southsiders in the youth authority were dudes from Bakersfield. Now, for whatever reason, they decided to send these guys into up north, And when I first got to NRCC, which is the reception, it's in Sacramento, or was in Sacramento. It's torn down now because there's no more YAs. The first celly I got was a Bulldog, Little White Nez from Eastside Fresno. And I remember him telling me, hey, they be sending Southsiders over here. There's a few of them in our building, on this yard. And I was like, for reals? Now, being young, the only interaction I had with Southsiders were dudes from Atwater, from A-Town, upstaters that didn't call themselves upstaters then. I had never to that day had no interaction with really Southsiders from Southern California, besides the one ultimately that I was locked up for the murder case, right? And I didn't really get to talk to him. It was a quick conversation, and then that was that. So I wanted to see if they move differently. It's kind of like when Southsiders first run into a Norteño that, damn, do they have a tail? Do they have horns? Like they don't really know what to expect. And it was the same thing with me. I wanted to see if they carried themselves different from, say, the A-Town Sureños or the Southsiders that I ran into from San Jose. I was a young kid, so my interaction with other gangs wasn't extensive. I knew who Norteños were, who the opposing, the red on red shit that was going on in the town, but I wasn't laced up enough to know about Southsiders from LA, right? Or Southsiders from, we always say LA, but from Bakersfield on back. So I remember going out to that day room and seeing them, and they didn't look much different from the way we looked, other than their pants were a little bit higher and baggier. But they pretty much had the same thing going on, and it kicked off. Rooster from Fresno Bulldogs, he kicked it off, and man, it was an ugly situation. There was only 5 of them and 30 or 40 of us. And needless to say, man, they got drug around the day room, but they handled their business. And I remember thinking when I went back to that cell after I wiped the mace out of my eyes from participating, like, damn, these dudes ain't no suckers or no punks. And I remember every one of those 5, they were from Bakersfield. There was 3 of them from Bakers 13, 1 from Colonia, and 1 from Barrio. So this is how I started to learn about Bakersfield and learn the history, right? So I got laced up by a guy from Delano, and I would ask him, like, hey, bro, you know, how was it going to the juvenile halls out there? He goes, man, there was always a gang of dudes from Bakersfield out there. We'd run into them. They'd be getting off on us. We'd get off on them. They kept us separate in some situations, but man, some of the times it just was what it was. So I started to notice when I got to Fred C. Nellis, you know, these guys from Bakersfield, they had a chip on their shoulder. And because I recognized this, I was the type of dude that was like watching everything. I was young and rambunctious and crazy, but at the same time, I knew what time it was. So I would tell the homies, you know, like, hey, bro, I always had a voice. I would tell the homies, like, hey, these vatos from Bakersfield, you got to watch out. These motherfuckers are dangerous, bro. Now, there was 2 dudes from Bakersfield in particular that were in NRCC that I remembered. One we called Guadalapush. He was from Bakers 13. Oh, no, excuse me. He was from Colonia Bakers. And we called him Guadalapush. That was kind of like a jab at how ugly he was. Stop, fail. He looked like he looked like he farted and his face imploded, right? Like he farted out of his mouth and his face melted. Just the ugliest individual I ever, well, not the ugliest one, but he's top 2, right? Ugliest motherfuckers I ever ran into. And there's actually some chick that be watching my channel. She thinks she's all smart and shit. She's uglier than him. But anyways, I digress. We're not going to go into that. But this dude was ugly, so we nicknamed him Guadalapush, and for whatever reason. And this guy, he had a major chip on his shoulder. Him and Clover from Okie Bakers, who was about the business. You know, when I was in YA, he was young, thin, tall dude, just knocking fools out. He had hands. So when these guys got to Nellis, I knew they recognized me from being in that riot, and I was in 2 riots with them two dudes. The first one that happened in the day room, then we went on lockdown, and then they sent 1 cell and a few other Northerners to the gym, and then fools got off on us. They rushed us, right? So I already knew what time it was, and let me tell you, them guys tried to give me the blues. Every time I went on yard movement, I never was in the same building with them, but every time that I went anywhere, chow, whatever, they see me, they would get off where they were mad at. And all the dudes from Bakersfield were like that. And it seemed to me like they were just a little bit more aggressive than the guys from LA or the guys from the IE. And I'm not trying to say that they were harder or crazier or downer. Their mentality was different. Now, I didn't know 2 years later that they were being called 13 and a half, or they were being looked at differently. Like, you vatos are from up there, but you fucking shit on this, handle your business, right? So I'm going to tell you guys a story about Bakersfield. So here I am on the streets. I just paroled. I'm 18 years old, chilling with the homies. And all the homies started to get out of YA about the same time. Homies were getting out of prison. We had a strong clique, solid clique, right? And we all had that same locked up mentality. We were all about the North. We're all about striving for our gente and our people. We were all in agreement, at least the little clique that I kicked it with. See, and when you're a gang member, you have your barrio, right? You have your barrio. And not everyone sees eye to eye. Just because you grew up in the same neighborhood, the same barrio, doesn't mean you like the same shit. You know what I mean? I like football. You like fucking rugby. It's pretty much the same, but not quite. So there's people that like different type of stuff. So you find the homeboys that you're closest with, you're cool, you're taitas, and they're your clica. Now, I know like in Southern California, you have cliques like Tiny Winos, Tiny Locos, Little Tinies, Diablos, the Psychos, all that. We didn't have that in Northern California. We had groups of homeboys that we kicked it with, and those were the homeboys we fucked with. You know, some of the times you see homeboys from your barrios and you'd be beefing with them, your own neighborhood, straight striving for the same cause, but you didn't like him because he boned your old lady, or in my case, I boned his, right? So that's usually how it was going. But I remember, you know, the group that I was with, they were a little bit older. Homeboys were like 25, 26, 27. Dude, they were like 30, 40, 40. Yeah, they were like 26, right? And so we all used to kick it, doggy, bomb. And one of the homeboys, man, he was singing, okay? He was getting off that dope. So I stood around the guys that we were money makers. We were trying to get paper. We understood in order to continue in this cause and this struggle, we needed to fucking have some 501s and some fucking white beaters, right? We needed to be dressed clean. So we hung around with the homeboy that had this shit going on. And one of his connections was out there in Bakersfield. Now, the dude that he was fucking with wasn't a Southsider, he was a paisa, right? But he was like, hey, we're going to have to go out there, bro, pick up a nice little chunk, come back. I'm going to need some security. You guys want to roll with me? So I remember being, hell yeah, because I already knew they were going to go out to eat. This was my mentality. Fuck the gangbanging and all that bullshit. I want to go eat fucking big with the homies, and I don't want to miss nothing. You know how it is, man. I ain't trying to miss nothing. So I remember there was about 4 or 5 of us, if I'm correct, and we went to Bakersfield. Now, me having done time with Bakersfield, I was on alert because I knew, hey, this is a Southsider area, bro. That's all there is. You know, I knew by now the history on how the Norteños used to be there, how they had barrios there, but they weren't there no more. And I had like I said, man, when them dudes came to Nellis, I had a lot of issues with Bakersfield, man, and I respected the shit out of them. Not fear, respect. I was like, these dudes were the ones putting in the most work on the Northerners down south. That's a fact. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. I lived through it. I survived it. I was there. I can tell you, right? Yes, I fought a lot of dudes from Los Angeles. Yes, I fought a lot of dudes from San Diego. Yes, I got into it with a lot of dudes respectfully from all them different areas. But Bakersfield stood out amongst the rest to me personally because they were deep and they were always the ones getting off on Northerners. Facts, right? So anyways, at least there. So anyways, we get there. I remember we pulled in and we stood in a motel because the dude who he was getting the shit from had to go somewhere else to get it. And so we're in a motel room and we're right. I remember we got off the freeway, and I don't know Bakersfield because I always pass Bakersfield. There's no reason for me to really go into Bakersfield, right? If I'm going to LA, right past the 99 through Bakersfield, and it is what it is. So we stood at a hotel. It was by a fucking Home Depot. I'll never forget. And we got like, it was a Best Western Motel 6, been years. We got up and we're chilling, and the homeboy's like, let's go to Denny's. Let's find a Denny's. So we cruised around that motherfucker till we found a Denny's, and we're in there eating. Okay, Southsiders walk. It's our luck. It never fails. They walk in. Now we're flamed up. We're gangbangers. We're Northerners. We're representing. We're not going to bow down. We're not trying to hide the shit. We're not trying to go out there and gangbang. That wasn't what we were there for. We were there for one thing and one thing only: pick up the dope and get on, right? But at the end of the day, we're not going to fucking deny where we're from. We're not going to keep our fucking shirts on. That's what we're not going to do. And if they are, they're going to be a red shirt, right? So dudes walk in. There's only 3 of them, and they have like 2 fat chicks with them, literally. They walk in, they're kind of looking, and one of them just walks by and he snickers, right? And I'm like, this is what I remember. These Bakersfield dudes were always a little bit arrogant with us. You know, they always were, you know, when I was locked up. So I told the homie, hey, watch out. And one of them, you can see right behind his ear, he had a B13, Baker's 13. I said, that's Baker's 13 right there, bro. The homies are like, damn, how do you know so much about him? I said, I fought these motherfuckers, bro. They're with the shit. Watch out. So I remember the homeboy, he's like, fuck that, bro. I'm going to go get at him. He was the older homeboy. We were there to get his dope. Ugly motherfucker, too. Está feo. So he looked like Guadalapush. So he gets up. It's one of my homeboys from my hood. Me and his brother are very, very good friends. Those from Merced know who I'm talking about, right? So he gets up and he walks over there and he's like, and they're conversing. He's conversing with like the biggest dude out of them all, right? And the dudes are like, hey, we ain't trying to fucking trip. We got our old ladies or whatever. And the homie's like, yeah, nah, we're letting you know we're not here for none of that bullshit, bro. We're from up north, but you know, it is what it is. But of course they had their old ladies with them. So back in the day, see, now it's different. Now they'll kill you with your 5-year-old kid and your old lady. They'll slap her and all kinds of shit. Back in our days, it was about respect and the G code, right? About being a real gangster. So we're not going to do nothing where family members, kids, women, civilians can get tainted. You know, if we had the issues like, hey, let's go over here around the parking lot, handle our business as men. So nothing happens. So the homeboy's like, of course, I'm not going to lie. I'd be a fucking liar in a fat mouth if I didn't say he came over. He's like, yeah, them fools don't want, and them fools are suckers, bro. But really, the homeboy went out there to plea bargain. You know, he went out there to say, hey, homie, we're not tripping. You ain't tripping. We ain't tripping. You want to trip? Because we don't, right? That was the truth. But he came back on the high power. Homeboys are laughing. We're eating. They're eating. I said, let's hurry up and get the fuck out of here before they double back. Because we're in their area. And, you know, when you have the enemigo or the enemiga or however you want to say it in your area, you're feeling disrespected. Like, what the fuck, Dave? What the fuck you about to do over here, eh? Right? Yeah. Right? Next thing you know, a fucking gang of little youngsters with AKs come out. So, nah. I knew enough about Bakersfield to understand this was a dangerous area. And for any of you that have been through Bakersfield, this is a little town out. No, Bakers is big and they're fucking with the program, right? So, anyways, we got on. Now, the next, we go to sleep at a hotel. Everything's gone. I'm on alert because I know, but nothing happens. They didn't know where we were at. Next day, we go down this fucking wood, what do you call it, dirt road way out in the middle of the cuts. And I remember we were at this house, gang of paisas. The homeboy was like, stay here. I'm going to go in the truck with this one dude. I'm going to go pick this shit up, and that's it. Well, next thing you know, man, we're waiting there for like an hour. Like, we're telling the paisas, like, hey, give him a call. We're trying to call the homie's not answering. Like, damn, did he fucking owe money? They took him out and killed him? And then all of a sudden, we see the paisa. It's like an hour later coming in his truck. He's like, hey, we need help. We need help. And I'm like, what? When we got there to where my homeboy was at, his fucking neck was almost hanging off. They hit him with the machete. To this day, he has a scar this big around his whole neck. Straight up. They hit him with the machetes. And I was like, oh, I almost shit him in my cachetes, right? Well, I'd never seen his head was just hanging. He was alive, but barely. I was like, I told the person, the hospital. I didn't know how to say it in Spanish, right? We took him to the hospital. What happened? We said, fucking got hit by a tractor. They were like, yeah, right. Cops came, detectives, snatching people up. I was like, my name's Bennett. I wasn't in it. I don't even know them dudes, right? I took my red shirt off, turned it inside out. No, this is burgundy. And that was that. But he ended up living. So what had happened was when he was over there with the paisa, some other Southsiders pulled up. They were from, I'm not going to say what water they were from because, you know, but they pulled up. They were dealing with, this guy was dealing with everybody. And they seen the homeboy. The homeboy had a 14 on him. And they were like, where you from, homie? He was like, Merced, 14. They were like, what? And they pulled out the machete and got to doing what they were doing. So Bakersfield has always been on my radar as a violent area. And that was my only interaction with them as far as on the streets, because I never went back to Bakersfield. I said, hell no, I'm supposed to use machete. They're different. Fuck that. I thought only MS used that shit. Well, there's a Bakersfield uses that machete still. I'm cool. And so that was that. Now, one thing I could say about Vatos from Bakers, and I get a lot of appreciation and love on my channel from the 805, you know, and I'll always call it the 805, just like I always call Fresno the 209. Always. Now I know the 357, 559, fucking whatever else they are, right? I call them the 209 because that's what I was used to. That was my era. That was the gangbanging era that I was involved in, you know? But Bakersfield was always with the shits. So let me explain to you one more story. I was in Preston, where you get that cheston. And Preston it was like the next level in the youth authority. See, when you first get to YA and you're young, you go to places like OH Close. Maybe if you're lucky, you go to Carl Holton, right? But it all went on age. The youngsters went to Nellis or OH. You know, that's where they went. And so the next level, when you're fucking up or you're being involved, is going to either Basel or Preston. And then ultimately you could, or Carl Holton, you could end up in DeWitt if you're just a knack and you fucking are just doing good, right? And some people just got sent there. I'm not going to talk bad, but I'm just saying. And then there's Chad and TS, and that was for older guys that were really putting in that work, you know, really, really doing it. But Preston was like the next level. And I remember getting to Preston. It was like, wow, this is what it feels like to be in prison. Like it was a whole different move than I was used to in Nellis. It was just like, it felt like, damn, I made it to the big time. And in Preston, there was everybody. There was Cribs. There was Oparu. There was Bloods. There was a gang of Norteños were probably the deepest. Bulldogs were a little thick there. There was a gang of Southsiders as well. Now, no, it wasn't on site. Nobody was on site. Everybody was functioning together. There was a lot of fights that happened, melees, riots, little skirmishes and things. But when it happened, it went down. It went down. But I remember one day in the school area in particular, you know, all the cars would all kind of kick it together. You had the Southsiders had Ramflas, and it didn't matter where you were from. You see Vatos from LA with Vatos from San Diego, Vatos from Harbor area, IE, whatever, Sela, Nella, whatever. If those were your homies, that's who you kicked it with. But Bakersfield, they usually stuck together. or the 805, Bruta, Bakers, Santa Maria, Lompoc, whatever, however, the different areas, Maifas, McFarland, all them little areas, they all stuck together, but mostly Bakers was the deepest, right? And there was a vaulter that got there from LA. He was from 18, pretty well known. His name was Crow. And I think he was from West Side 18. But anyways, he gets there, right? And he's pushing that LA shit hard. Like, LA's better than everyone, this and that. And I remember the Northerners was like, man, this fool, he ain't disrespecting the homies, but man, he's walking around on that LA shit like really disrespectful. So fools were tripping a little bit lightweight, right? And he was with his gangster shit, though. I seen him put hands on a couple dudes. But anyways, he was giving this dude from Baker's a bad time on his building. We were in Greenbrier, and that was the name of the building. Because all the buildings there were named after trees. Manzanita, Greenbrier, Cedar, Ironwood, Evergreen, Tamarack. They were just named after trees. So anyways, he was giving this dude a bad time. And this dude went to the square and told his homeboys from Baker's, a homeboy from his neighborhood. He was from Colonia Bakers. He was like, hey, this fool's tripping. He's pushing that LA shit on me, man. Call me 13 and a half and all that. And that was the first time I seen the Bakersfield. They got off with the LA cats. They got off with it was like 3 Ranflas, like LA, San Diego, everyone versus like Bakersfield. Bakersfield was mollywhopping shit. I'm just to be real, man. Got to keep it real. Anyways, man, if you really want to know the history on Bakersfield, I'm sure like that show, The Mob Spot with Boxer and Mundo. They're probably going to get into some Bakersfield shit eventually because the Bakersfield is pretty a popular area. There's a lot of history there with North and South and even some of the prison organizations. So make sure you guys go tap into them for that fucking history. But I can only tell you firsthand my accounts. I always got a lot of respect and love for Bakersfield because they were really in they were really in the field with it. They were really putting in work. And I know that the whole 805 area, man, they were looked at different because they were more northern than, say, the southern were. But to me, they were always the most violent and vicious dudes putting in the work, even amongst each other. So that's the facts, right? With that being said, thumbs up or thumbs down. I hope you guys enjoy the Super Gang series. If you do, hit a 1 in the comments. Let me know. I got more on deck. I got Super Norteños on deck, Super Woods. We're not going to forget any of the comedy, man. I got you guys. I really got you guys, man. And we're going to keep it going, man. Heavy's going to be the head that wears this crown. Let's keep this channel popping, man. I appreciate the support. The Gun.